So okay, we'll just roll with that. So yeah, we'll go over like some of the other programs here at the Center for Excellence in Disabilities. And then, you know, how we do what we do, how we implement positive behavior support in the program for our current grant year. So we're going to give a shout out to our funders. We're funded through the Bureau for Behavioral Health, and Dr. Swagger is our PI, and she does an awesome job. So that's basically how we are. And so we're grant funded, so we're able to be flexible in how we're providing services too, which is nice, because then, you know, if somebody doesn't qualify for Medicaid and they don't have personal insurance, we can still serve them, and we're completely free service. So I'll talk broadly about the Center for Excellence in Disabilities first, and let you guys know about some of the other programs that we have here that we work collaboratively with. So we are part of WU and the Health Science Center. We're also part of a national network of USEDs. So there's one in every state and territory. So we're West Virginians, they're always housed out of a major research university because there is a lot of research, and they're basically a cluster of grants to help people with developmental disabilities and also physical disabilities. And there's a lot more mental health awareness now too. So our program has been around since 1989. It was originally called Life Quilters. And we've traditionally served people with developmental disabilities. However, a few years ago, our grant somewhat shifted to children's mental health focus as our primary target audience, our primary target clinical services. But we still serve both. We have a lot of people that we serve that are dual diagnosis as well. So about the CED in general, we serve the entire state of West Virginia. We're very centered to West Virginia, so we know our 55 counties very well. The ones shaded in blue here have physical CED staff in them. A lot of the programs are housed out of DHHR offices. In the PBS program, we're all housed out of either the Morgantown office or the Big Chimney office. So there's 5 of us in Morgantown and 3 of us in Big Chimney. So the CED in general, we do education and training. The PBS program we do, we're doing 52 trainings this year as far as the mass trainings. And then actually we've sprinkled a couple more in there. And then we do technical assistance for professionals to get more of that one-on-one support if they're getting stuck, providing positive behavior support services. We do direct services, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit on what our direct services really look like. And then we disseminate information about disability services. We send out a lot of fact sheets and just tip sheets and that kind of thing. And then research. The last research that the PBS program did was on coexisting conditions, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. So if you'd like to become an affiliate of the CED, we would love for you to become an affiliate. You can go to the CED's main page and on the About and become an affiliate and get all the news and info. So yeah, I'll talk about some of the other programs that we have here. We have Modify, which helps foster youth transition into adulthood. They help with some of the educational funding for foster youth. So a lot of times if we serve somebody that has been in foster placement, and there's some kinship cares that qualify for this as well, we'll often refer them to Modify. It sort of gives them that extra boost of support as they're going into adulthood. I know sometimes they'll call their Modify worker and be like, how do I change my oil? You know, how do I balance my checkbook? Those kind of things. Specialized family care. This one has been around for a very long time. It is similar like foster care for adults with disabilities. And they work with the IDD waiver program here in West Virginia. And so people will live with these families for years and years and years, and obviously be part of that family. Parent network specialist. So these are parents of children, usually children who became adults with developmental disabilities, that help other parents navigate the system, navigate what kind of resources and supports are out there. And they have Circle of Parents, which is a support group. We were actually on one of our brainstorming calls yesterday, and one of the families that we worked with had said, oh yeah, I referred another family from the Circle of Parents support group. So that was pretty cool. And then Family to Family, which is sort of under that Parent Network Specialist umbrella as well. They're under PAS for Parents. They provide triple P services. So it's positive parenting. And it's an evidence-based practice. We actually have 3 triple P practitioners in the PBS program. So Nick Larson, Christine Dixon, and Cheryl Keeney are all individual triple P certified practitioners. And we do offer, for some of our intensive clients that would qualify for it, we would offer triple P 10-week series. It's few and far between whenever people would qualify for that, and it would be a great fit. We only have one person right now that's utilizing that. But there's triple P seminars as well that Family to Family hosts about every other month. They're actually happening this week, ironically. And so Nick, Cheryl, or Christine will sit on those as well as a consultant for any kind of behavioral concerns, and talk with the group about that. So another cool resource that we have here is the Disability Resource Library. And I got to talk about these puppets real quick. They're pretty big. They're like, I'd say about 3 foot tall, and they all have backstories. So I think this one's Corey. Anyway, they have these really cool storylines. I even did part of the voiceover for one of them. And it's really cool because it teaches kids about disabilities and acceptance and awareness. So there's been times whenever these puppets have went on the road. There have been times whenever people with disabilities themselves have been the puppeteers, and there's also been school sessions where the kids have been puppeteers for the other kids. So it's just a really cool thing that PAS for Parents group does. And next is the Traumatic Brain Injury Program. This is different from TBI waiver. We get that a lot, where those two will get confused. They're resources for one another, really. So the Traumatic Brain Injury Program here at the CED has a lot wider eligibility than the TBI waiver. Really, anybody that's had a concussion or head injury that's noted in medical documents would qualify in West Virginia. And they will assist with resource coordination. Oftentimes we've helped with the TBI program. We'll do a person-centered planning for some of the survivors, or just help with some of the preventative strategies, or visual cues, reminders, those kind of things. Work incentives planning assistance is really cool. It helps people navigate the Social Security benefits program with going back to work. So that whole SSI, SSDI system, they'll help you out. WBATS, we utilize a lot with positive behavior support. They have a virtual loan library that has over 4,000 devices that anybody in West Virginia can borrow at any time. So my daughter, she had broken her leg when she was really little, like less than 2 years old. And so I went on the London Library and searched like little wheelchairs, and there was one in Montrose. I could borrow it for 30 days. So it's got a lot of really cool stuff. I was actually on there yesterday for a brainstorming call and looked up if they had weighted blankets. They had weighted lap pads, and they had weighted vests. So you can borrow all these different cool devices, try them out. We often will utilize their resources for communication devices for some of the people that we serve, so they can test those out. A fairly new program is Impact. They help with neonatal abstinence syndrome. So it's a partnership with the VU Medicine and Birth to 3 right from the start, those home visitation programs where the families can get resources and education on how to best support their children. And they're also doing research on the effects. And so we actually provided the addressing challenging behavior modules for this program. And then this is a very new program, Regional Transition Navigators. They just started this year, and they're going to be helping youth transition into adulthood. So we're going to have a lot of overlap with the people that we serve for this one. And next we have a couple clinics. We have Feeding and Swallowing Clinic. There's a Feeding and Swallowing Clinic here in Morgantown and also in Charleston, and a Next Steps Clinic. And that just helps with whenever somebody gets a new diagnosis to see what could be a good life plan until they're 21. So with that, and if anybody has any questions, I should probably pause. Is there any questions about any of the other CED programs?
And Anastasia, I'll help you monitor the chat. If any come in, I'll interrupt you and ask the questions out loud for you if you'd like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, at any time, you guys just put in the chat some questions. So yeah, the CED website's pretty thorough and it has a lot of that stuff. So yeah, we'll jump into PBS in general. So this is just, PBS is an international field. So it is teaching in a way that works for that person to find replacement behaviors that serve the same function as a problem behavior. So if somebody's having problems with aggression, what does that aggression look like? What purpose is it serving for them? Because there's a reason behind everything that we do. We just might not be thinking of it at that time. And so we try to find things that they can do to serve that same function in a more productive way that works for them, and find really internal motivators, but also external reinforcers that they're going to keep that new replacement behavior going, or even finding more ideal things to learn in the long run. And another big component of how we do what we do is we improve quality of life. We look at what they want ultimately for their dream and how to get there. And that really helps with, just really having people live their best life and reducing challenging behavior heavily and improving depression symptoms as well. So this quote really sums up PBS in a nutshell. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. So this is our philosophy. We do the same thing with people. So we're not going to say, oh, well, you have to change. We want you to be your best full self. We want to have an environment that would help promote that. So really, in society, there's PBS all around us. Whenever we have like stop signs or stoplights, for example, that's a proactive strategy that society has just said to not run into each other or not to have the whole whose right away is it. So that's a PBS strategy whenever you really think about it. It's setting up the environment to have success. So if you set out a fruit bowl in your kitchen instead of a bunch of bags of chips or unhealthy stuff, that's a PBS strategy. We wouldn't necessarily always think of it as PBS, but it is. I mean, that's what it is. It's setting up the environment for success. So just like a flower, we want to give ourselves the right soil and the sunlight and water and all that. So this quote's in like all of our trainings. And so we look at the ABCs of behavior whenever we're doing a functional behavior assessment and positive behavior support plan. And so we really want to look at what's going on all around the target behavior, but also what's just happening in this person's life. And so then we create interventions based on that ABCs of what's going on, especially around the target behavior. So some things that we do, and this is sort of how those ABCs relate to the interventions. And this will make more sense whenever we're talking about the functional behavior assessment and the trauma-informed positive behavior support plan in the last part of this training. So yeah, we look at proactive strategies for the antecedents and prompting those new replacement behaviors and just setting them up for success, teaching new skills, and a FERB is a functionally equivalent replacement behavior. We always like to just call them FERBs. So just looking at the antecedents, sometimes our slow triggers, you know, if you're having a bad day, if you're just getting up on the wrong side of the bed, those kind of things we're more likely to have some of our challenging behaviors. So we're looking at a very specific behavior and then what's going on usually before that behavior for some of these antecedents to identify. So once we identify the antecedents, we will create proactive strategies. So whenever you are getting up on the wrong side of the bed, what can you do to make your day better? What can you do to help increase your mood? Well, if I'm feeling so grouchy, I'm going to go take a 10-minute walk, and that could be my proactive strategy to start the day. So it's really looking at environmental strategies, environmental changes, and also precursor behavior. So it would be something that happens before a problem behavior. Like I know that if I am gritting my teeth, I'm going to probably say something I regret. So if I'm gritting my teeth, then I know that I need to have some calming strategies, and that could be one of my proactive strategies. So it's very important. This is one of the main tenets of PBS, is that we want to focus on those proactive strategies to prevent problems before they start. So here's some examples of some very common ones we use a lot. Velcro picture schedules. I know schools use these a ton too. So you can see here the yellow strip there where you can, you know, flip them out. And this is really good for people that have trouble transitioning to different environments, or a lot of times people on the autism spectrum like this because it lays out the day and it increases that predictability, which is reducing anxiety. So that's helpful too. Using a different tone of voice, asking things different ways. I know all of us moms and dads know always have snacks on hand. Another proactive strategy, prevent that hanger. A funny signal word. This one I think is the most helpful. And the reason why I have these squirrels down here on that is because how I came across that as a strategy, and I've used it in a lot of plans that I've written over the years, has been, I was working with a teenager at a group home whenever I was in my early 20s myself, and he would just get real quick to anger and physical aggression. So whenever he was starting to escalate, instead of saying, okay, buddy, calm down, or, you know, go to your room, relax, or whatever, the prompt for him to go take a chill break was squirrels. And he would just have this little tiny laugh at the squirrels. And I'd have to say it like that too. And so that worked for him. That worked for years for him. So that success story prompted that in like a ton of plans. And we don't, and I shouldn't say it as like, oh, we would use this for everybody. We wouldn't use it for everybody. And I would usually have a different funny signal word for a lot of other people, but the funny signal word's super helpful for a prompt to chillax. Providing clear expectations, that's another proactive strategy you see all throughout society, but we almost, you know, don't always think of it as proactive strategy. Social stories, we use those a lot as well. Choice boards, especially for somebody that has verbal communication difficulties, quiet, relaxing spaces. I think this is imperative for everybody, a quiet, relaxing space to calm down. If we're working with a family that has a ton of kids in a small space, trying to find like, where can this kid go as a designated space to have their chillax away from everybody time. Because, us as adults, how many of us will go out to our car, or if you're having a bad day, go to the bathroom when you don't really have to go to the bathroom. So yeah, that's a big one. Sensory integration techniques. There's a website, sensorysmarts.com. I love that website. They have a lot of really great ideas. So this is one, like the sensory integration and relaxation thing we teach a lot. So this is the flower candle exercise. So you would, and we could do this together if you guys want to do this with me. That'd be great. You would cross your arms and pretend like you're sniffing flowers. And you can imagine if they're roses or daisies or tulips. And sniff the flowers and blow out the candle. I always say that our thumbs are relighting wick. So we would prompt somebody to do that several times. And so it's teaching that breathing exercise. It's also, that guided visualization. So and it's also, sort of giving yourself a hug. So I love this one. We've done sniff the steak, blow on the potato. We've done all kinds of different modifications to it. So we do want to keep it person-centered too and see what that person would like. So just some examples too of providing those clear expectations, having like rules posted. A lot of times we'll work with families and we'll say, okay, let's as a family make some family rules. What can we do, as a family, like maybe if somebody's talking to somebody that they put their phone down or those kind of things. Visual prompts, it's another big one that we'll use a lot. A lot of like prompting too for like bathroom strategies or those kind of things where they would want their privacy and autonomy to allow for all of that while still, getting everything done that needs to happen. Social pressure, really just having kids help other kids, so having those peer role models that are going to be the good influence. We were talking about a case the other day and about a client who the family wants to put her in residential placement, and we're like, oh, she's just going to learn bad things there. And then we're like, find a summer camp. If we can find a summer camp, she's going to have that social pressure in a much better way, have that better influence. But anyway, functions of behavior, we want to always look at what that purpose is serving for that person. That is huge in PBS because we want to find a replacement behavior that is going to work for that purpose, that function for them. Because if they're going to continue to do this challenging behavior, they're doing it for a reason. So we want to find a replacement behavior that's easier and more effective than that problem behavior. And that's where it gets really tough. But yeah, so we do a lot of detective work with the functional behavior assessment to try to figure out that why and that purpose. And so whenever we're looking at the replacement behaviors, the FERBs, they need to be easier, reinforce more, and reinforce with those internal reinforcers for that person and fit that context of what's going on around that person's life. So here's some replacement behavior examples. And the biggest part of the replacement behavior is that it has to meet this function. So picking at source, picking Elmer's glue isn't going to work for everybody if it's not that sensory stimulation. And there had been, really, it's still moving away from this, but the idea that there's 4 main functions of behavior: sensory, escape, attention, tangible. And it's not really as simple as that. In real life, there's a lot of internal motivators. There's ego, there's esteem building. There's just wanting to be right. Those kind of things. It doesn't fit cleanly into the sensory, escape, attention, tangible. But we utilize those 4 main functions to sort of get thinking about some of those replacement behaviors. And so then we want to teach those and teaching them in a strength-based way too. So we will often do like a learning style profile and see how they best learn. Are they an audible reader? Are they more of a hands-on learner? And try to do some errorless learning and some prompts and do some shaping to try to get those replacement behaviors really going for them. So whenever we're looking at behaviors, we want to operationally define those target behaviors that we're trying to change, and then the replacement behaviors. And another key factor of this is that the person has to be totally on board with wanting to do this. So that's something where we really want to see, is this behavior something that you want to change? Because another component of this is that we look at motivational interviewing, and is that person ready for change in the stages of change? So every behavior that we do is communicating something. It's communicating some kind of need for us. So even by doing that, with some sensory input. So yeah, we want to look at how that behavior is communicating. So we do want to look at different communication outlets, because oftentimes that will be the key to a replacement behavior. Some other way that they can communicate that need, that purpose that behavior is serving. So that's where that WVCTSI program is really helpful to borrow some communication devices and be like, try these out, especially for the people that we serve that have verbal communication difficulties. I see there's 2 things in the chat too. I'll take a little breather so we can do the chat.
Yeah, so we had a question, Elizabeth, when you were doing like the exercise of breathing, like blowing out the candle, she was just wondering like if you kind of have to focus on the control of releasing the breath, or is it more focusing on blowing out that quote unquote candle? And Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I was thinking that too. So you could kind of explain that a little.
I just really do it with however they want to do it. So if they want to like have more of that 3, 2, 1 breath, that's great. So yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times too, we'll do it with them just to do that teaching technique. So we'll have them pick their flowers or pick, whatever thing they're sniffing. And then I try to do it really slow at first and just sort of, get it to that like sort of relaxing. It is really relaxing too. If I do like 10 of those, I'm just, yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm going to start doing that exercise too.
Yeah, it's a really great way to teach it too, because it's very concrete. So I've noticed that a lot of times the concrete teaching strategies are really helpful for people to understand like what we're trying to get at with it. So whenever we're looking to the behavior, we want to see, what's immediately happening after that behavior, because sometimes that is a big clue into the purpose of what need that behavior is serving for that person. So every action has a consequence, good or bad or indifferent. And that's something too that is hard, I think, sometimes for people to think about, as far as like whenever somebody's doing something, they're either doing it to get away from some kind of sensory attention, some kind of stimuli. So we want to look at that as well. And then we want to make sure that we are catching people being good. We want to look at how to reinforce other behaviors that are good. So we look at differential reinforcement. So the DROs of, reinforcing other behavior, or the really how we do the functionally equivalent replacement behaviors is that differential reinforcement of alternative behavior approach through behavioral psychology, as far as looking to reinforce that alternative behavior as much as possible. So we do try to add some artificial reinforcers in addition to the functional reinforcement as well. So we want to build on people's strengths as much as possible. So a lot of those past few slides have been that behavioral psych part of PBS. Another component of PBS, I always say that PBS is the marriage of applied behavior analysis and positive psychology. So it's taking the best of both of those concepts, those fields, and combining those to build on one another. And so we utilize a lot of positive psychology as far as building on strengths and building resiliency. So we will look at how to build their self-esteem, how to do some positive reminders, how to look at happiness inventories and those kind of things. So we really want to look at what that person's interested in and apply that to the verb, apply that to the artificial reinforcers, to everything to build on those strengths. And so we really want to look at how to increase this person's resiliency, especially working with at-risk youth. A lot of times, they've had some hard things that they've went through. And some of these kids are super resilient. And it amazes me just how strong they really are, and to help them with building that as much as possible. So something that we're trying to really focus on is building that strength and building those connections, building those ways to see themselves in the positive light, building optimism, and those kind of things. One thing that we incorporate a lot in PBS recently, in the last couple of years, there's been a real big push, especially in the home and community PBS world, for mindfulness. And it's awesome. And I think that we all need this. And I love how WU has mindfulness seminars and all that through the wellness program, because it really is huge for resiliency and our stress response, especially during the pandemic. We're all super stressed, and so trying to teach some mindfulness techniques to kids. We have a handout like mindfulness for kids, and just trying to find some way that they can practice mindfulness on a regular basis in a way that works for them. Another thing is that we want to help them teach self-regulation. Just trying to, especially go into calming strategies. That's a big one. That's one that I'm always using with my kids. I'm like, wanting them to go to their tents in their room because that's their calming space. And so that's something that we teach a lot too, with going to a calming space. And this is sort of the differences, because a lot of times people are like, well, that's timeout. Timeout hasn't traditionally been used in PBS. And I think that's because too, we work with adults. Really, it's just teaching somebody how to walk away and how to self-regulate. And I think that's imperative for kids. They gotta learn how to be able to chill whenever it's, they're having this overwhelming response. So teaching somebody to go to their calming space and making it a fun, happy environment. So here's some really cool calming space ideas. I always say that I'm going to do the igloo with the jugs, but that's a bit beyond my Pinterest abilities. But I have done the tents in the rooms. We've done the tents and the lights. So that's PBS in a nutshell. And then, so we'll talk about how we do in the PBS program, what we do. So we have trainings, client services, and resources. We have 6 behavior specialists currently. We did get an expansion on our grant last July 1st. We originally had 5 behavior specialists, and then our expansion allowed us to grow for 3 more behavior specialists and a curriculum developer. However, we have some open positions right now. But we have 6 behavior specialists. Nick Larson, Mariah Ridgely, Cheryl Keeney, Christine Dixon, Ashley Hovatter, and our newest addition, Jordan Burkle, who just started Monday. So, and Jackie keeps us all together. Jackie keeps us running. And so this is our website for the PBS program. And like I said, you know, we do the client services, training, and then also provide resources. But client services and trainings are our main thing. So we'll first talk about our training and mentoring services. We do provide technical assistance to behavior support professionals, providing that service throughout West Virginia. So there's times whenever, especially in IDD waiver, the behavior support professional might need some additional guidance. They might have a hard case, so they might call us up for that. And then trainings. So we regularly provide, read them off, increasing quality of life. Anger management for youth is a new one. We're having a little trouble actually getting youth registered for that one. So we're looking at our marketing techniques with it. Implementing trauma-informed PBS, it's sort of more of a flagship training. De-escalation techniques for first responders, and we're getting more and more first responders coming to that as well. Trauma 101, MAPS, which is making action plans, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Creating interventions workshop, which is another new one this year. We're actually doing that one tomorrow. And it's really cool because it's sort of the first hour of it's the training. So we do have one social work CEO approved for it. And then there's a second hour of it that providers can submit a case. So sort of like the case didactic for ECHO, where they would submit a case, and then we would use the solution circle model to brainstorm through that case with all the participants of that training. Let's see, what other ones do we have? I think that might be all of our trainings. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but yeah, we're offering most of these every other month. Some of them are 8 times through the year. Oh, I know what one I'm forgetting. PBS for parents, we have on Soul. We're looking to put that on a different training platform because with it being a community training, it's sort of hard. They're making the participants utilize Duo now. So I'm trying to figure out a way that's more user-friendly for people in the community not affiliated with a BU to access PBS for parents, but it's online, so that way they can utilize it at any time. Yeah. So have that. And then we have our resources and some different things that, like the Association for Positive Behavior Support, or we're members of that, and the Hemi Community PBS, and then some other PBS overview trainings as well. We have some old PBS overview trainings that we've given to providers to train their staff for different agencies as well. And then we've done research in the past on the coexisting needs in West Virginia for people with IDD and mental health concerns. And we found that there's a high level need, not as many resources. I am happy though to report, this was in, I think, 2018 when we did this research. There's been a huge uptick in mental health resources lately, especially for youth. So I think that with the growth of wraparound and mobile crisis and family coordinators and expanded school mental health and those kind of things, it's really been helpful on getting some of those community resources, but we still have a lot more that we need. And we were identifying some barriers for people with IDD to access some of those services. And some of those things we still have as barriers, such as not enough therapists in the state, not enough providers and those kind of things. So anyway, client services. So this is the meat and potatoes of how we do what we do. We have 3 primary services: brainstorming, person-centered planning, and intensive. And brainstorming, it's a 1-hour telehealth session. And it's sort of a mini PBS intensive service where we try to look at the function of the behavior, try to find some strengths that we can build upon, and provide some intervention ideas. And then the behavior specialist will culminate all those ideas. Sometimes we stew on it for like a day or two to really get all of the intervention ideas, resources, link them to all those resources. So it might be equine therapy, and then we would get them the information on eagle's wings or that kind of thing, where we're giving them the information on how to access those services as well. So yeah, it's really just that 1-hour telehealth, getting them those interventions. And so it's a really quick way to really give services to people that wouldn't qualify for our PBS intensive services, and also for people that it might be just too much. They're overwhelmed with everything going on, and they just need a little bit of the ideas to get them started. Person-centered planning is the most fun service you can ever do. This is a map. This is for Virginia West. She was on an application, made up person. So yeah, we do these often. I do them for myself. We do them on ourselves a lot. So it's just this 8-step process to get at a person's dream and how to create that plan of action on how to get there. We mostly do the map for person-centered planning, but I'll show you guys in a second a path as well. So for our our PBS intensive service, so this is our big service. I want to say it's up to 6 months. However, we get really attached to our clients, and it's really hard to close them out, and things happen. And so we've had some people go way over 6 months. But this is a service for youth who are at risk of out-of-home placement, to keep them in the home. So to keep them out of residential placement and in the community and at home successful. And that they can't qualify for a PBS practitioner through another source. If they do qualify for a PBS practitioner through another source, which really right now we're only considering IDD waiver, is that for the behavior support professionals, we would potentially provide technical assistance to that practitioner. So we do multiple home visits. They would have a designated behavior specialist assigned. We'll do a functional behavior assessment, and then a trauma-informed positive behavior support plan, and then train on the interventions that are created from that. So with the FBAs, this is just sort of how we do it. We're connecting interviews and looking at the IEP and talking to the therapist and talking to the parents, and collecting as much data as possible, and then really extracting from that what their interests are, their strengths, the function of that behavior, what their triggers are, their communication style, their learning style, what kind of supports they have. So these are sort of our questionnaires. I'll just run through these really quick. This is our 8 dimensions of quality of life evaluation. This is something that we do for all of our intensive folks. They'll get this pre and post services. And this is more of our outcome measure as well as an assessment technique. So we want to, look at these 8 dimensions of quality of life. And these are the same 8 dimensions as SAMHSA utilizes. So we're looking at how to increase all 8 of those. And we talk a lot about that in our increasing quality of life training. And then a learning style profile, functional assessment screening tool. These are just common ones. Sometimes we'll switch them out for other kinds of assessments. They'll get some of that same information. Motivation assessment scale. Mark Duran, who created this, had came to West Virginia and really helped the West Virginia Association for Positive Behavior Support a few years ago. So he's a big PBS practitioner that's near and dear to West Virginia's heart. Reinforcement inventory, we do these. Usually, this is a few pages of an assessment, really. And then a functional assessment interview form. This one, I get the most information that's really useful for creating those intervention ideas. And then we try to find some data collection techniques that work for the family too, because I know I've written behavior plans for myself, my kids, my cat. I've literally written a behavior plan for a cat. And I know whenever I'm collecting data for myself, I have trouble with that. So we want to make our data collection as easy and as simple as possible because we want to have these interventions be used. We want it to be, something that's going to be a happy thing for the people that we serve. So whenever we're looking at collecting that data, we want to have those operational definitions. So they're seeing it the same way. And then also tracking, how often that replacement behavior is happening. So here's some like more creative ways that we've utilized that behavior tracking before, where they can just check mark these things. They'll stand for different stuff. The MDs like mom, dad, mama, papa. And then just different ways they can just check mark stuff. It's a lot easier that way. Although we do have some families that like the journaling forms, but it's few and far between. Most people like the check marks. This one, I started using something like this for a mom who did not read and write. And so she would check off, or she'd make tally marks actually, for how often it happened for the week. And then sister would give me a little bit more of the background info. And so, yeah, we try to do as many observations in different environments. What's working at school, can we incorporate at home? What's working at home, can we incorporate at school? Those kind of things. And then looking at their circle of support, how to really build that sense of community, get those connections going. And then the map that I showed you with person-centered planning is also part of our intensive service. So it's part of our functional behavior assessment process, because we want to really find what that person's dream is and their internal motivators and their strengths. So here's one that like a real life map. And then we also do these things called a path, which is similar, but it gets more of that plan of action going. We don't do those as frequently, but they're really powerful. Here's an example of one of this. So yeah, just the path's a little bit longer of a process. And if they have their dream already sort of thought out, that's sometimes better. And there's other person-centered planning techniques too. The map's really the one we do the most, but anyway, we culminate all that information and create interventions from that functional behavior assessment. So that way we can create a trauma-informed positive behavior support plan. We create those proactive strategies, set the environment for success, ways to avoid, adjust, and cope with triggers, increasing quality of life on those 8 dimensions, looking at the functional equivalent replacement behaviors and how to teach that, reinforcing that good behavior, teaching what to do whenever the problem behavior arises. How do we redirect the person to a calming strategy, not reinforce the problem behavior, those kind of things. Crisis plan when things go fully off the rails. For help for West Virginia is always in there. And generalization and maintenance of the replacement behaviors. Sorry, I'm just sort of talking real fast. So here is our template for our TI-PBS plan. We utilize this particular template. It was actually in our grant proposal, because we have these grayed out areas to sort of identify the different components and what would potentially go in these. And what's great about that is that we can give the grayed out areas to the families, and then the families can sort of see the process, and it's teaching them how to fish and how to implement positive behavior support in the long run, because we are short-term service. And so we want them to, next problem behavior that arises in life, because we all have things pop up in life, that they'll be able to utilize some of those techniques for it as well. So yeah, these are the different components that we have. And you can see that we have all 8 dimensions of quality of life intervention, just to enhance those as much as possible. And so yeah, and our grant, we look at our outcome data. We send out satisfaction surveys for all of our clients. We look at the risk of out-of-home placement on a scale of 1 to 10, and their preparedness to implement interventions. We utilize the child analysis needs and strengths assessment for our intensive clients, and about the 3-month mark. So that way, once we've gotten to know them a little bit, and then that 8 dimensions of quality of life on a 1 to 5 Likert scale. And we do evaluations and pre-post tests for our trainings as well. So that's PBS in a nutshell. So sorry, I sort of talk fast sometimes. So is there any questions?
Thank you so much, Anastasia. No, we understood everything perfectly. You didn't rush through that at all. So, and I'll be attaching the PowerPoint in the recap email for sure. So any questions that come through email, definitely send your way. But what awesome work that you all do. Thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been wonderful. Any questions or comments from the group? Feel free to unmute or chat in. I muted myself. We got a chat in from Jerry. Thank you so much for that. He was just saying thank you so much for the presentation today and for broader, more holistic approach to this echo take. So really appreciate that. Jerry, I didn't know if you wanted to maybe unmute and kind of share your experiences with, I know you said some of the other psychiatry, mental health, and behavioral health echoes. So if you wanted to maybe comment on that and expand further.
Sure. I just really sincerely value the approach you take. I think it's a good complement to some of the other things I mentioned in the chat. And I'm not going to name names, but other programs that do both adult psychiatry and child psychiatry and behavioral health echoes. And I guess I would just say that in the short time that I've been involved with this echo, I really appreciate the what I'll call complementary perspective to all that other information. So thank you.
That's really nice of you. Thank you so much for commenting on that. We appreciate that. Any other comments, thoughts from the group? I'm trying to take it all in myself too. I'll probably go through the slides some more and browse through some of those resources that you shared in there. So thank you again so much, Anastasia.
Thank you guys. It's an honor.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further questions for now, as always, feel free to reach out to myself or Elizabeth if there are any further comments, questions, and we'll make sure to have them addressed. The only announcement that I have is that our next session will be on May 4th, and Dr. Swagger will be discussing the West Virginia PALS resource call line. So that's a great didactic as well. I've heard it before. Had the honor to hear it before, so keep an eye out for that reminder, and we'll hope to see you all next time. Thank you again. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.